Vice President JD Vance heading to Indiana today as the political war over congressional redistricting continues to rage. Vance will meet with the state's Republican governor, Mike Braun, to discuss prospects of redrawing Indiana's congressional districts ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. At the direction of President Trump and his allies, Republican-controlled states are working to gerrymander new districts that favor GOP candidates. In response, Democrats in blue states are promising to redraw districts that favor their party. Joining us to discuss, White House reporter here at The Hill, Brett Samuels. Brett, thanks so much for coming on. What do you know about Vice President Vance's visit to the Hoosier State today?
Yeah, Drew, as you mentioned, the vice president expected to meet with Governor Mike Braun, of course, a former senator from Indiana. So, someone who knows the Trump administration fairly well. But, the two sides have been sort of vague or general about the discussion. Vice President Vance and his team haven't really even spoken publicly about it. Although, of course, the White House has weighed in on the redistricting debate. And as for Governor Braun, he has said that they're going to have sort of a general conversation and that redistricting will come up. So, we know that this will be talked about, this will be discussed, but as far as any tangible results that will come from this meeting, I think we'll all be kind of waiting to see once it concludes kind of what tangibly might actually come from this.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Indiana state lawmakers are too thrilled about being rushed into an effort to redraw maps ahead of 2026.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of hoops that they'd have to jump through to actually get this done ahead of the midterms. They'd have to call for a special session. I'm sure there'd be legal challenges that would crop up about whether they can actually legally go forward and do this sort of mid-decade redistricting. There are some lawmakers, it's not like in Texas where everyone seems to be on board and full speed ahead with this. There are some lawmakers who do seem less than enthused about this. And, we've even heard from other Republicans who are a little concerned about sort of the precedent that it sets and sort of the domino effect of if you see Republican states like Indiana follow through on this, what this means for the rest of the country. So again, it's not exactly a sure thing that Indiana will follow through on this, but Vance's visit is a sign that the White House is sort of getting involved here and getting aggressive.
Yeah, along those lines, what President Trump wants, he usually gets inside the Republican Party. Is there any reason to think that wouldn't be the case here if the White House really put on a full court press for them to move forward with this in Indiana?
Yeah, I do think especially a state like Indiana, which is very red leaning, Trump has won multiple times. That is a state where Trump may have more sway and could actually, his involvement could actually make a difference here. And I do think, if we see other blue states like Illinois or California signal that they're going to move forward with redistricting efforts and redrawing their maps, then that only increases the pressure on a state like Indiana to essentially get in the fight for Republicans and do their part to kind of balance that out. So, it does seem like this is something that one meeting is not going to solve, and it's not just going to go away just because some lawmakers might express some skepticism in the short term.
Have you heard any consideration from Republicans that maybe this gerrymandering effort may not be worth it? I mean, you have blue states promising to retaliate, could cost Republican lawmakers hard-fought seats in states like California, New York, and Illinois, all for what, maybe like one or two seats when it all evens out. Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, you make a good point, Drew, that kind of at the end of the day, if all these states do this, the net gain is maybe a couple seats, or maybe it's, essentially a net neutral and neither party really gains more than a seat here or there. But we have seen some Republicans express some concerns about this, try and push back on this. There was a Republican lawmaker in California, Congressman Kiley, who did actually introduce legislation to try and bar mid-decade redistricting. Now, that's not going to go anywhere, of course, but a sign of some discontent there from somebody whose seat might be affected by redrawing congressional lines in California. Ari Fleischer, former press secretary for George W. Bush, actually chimed in on social media to express some concerns about the precedent that this will set. and the fact that, the domino effect of, if one state does this, then all kinds of other states will follow suit, and it will just become sort of this tit for tat where every state is trying to score points for their political party. But as far as President Trump is concerned in the White House and those voices that really matter at the top of the party, President Trump said, he thought Democratic states would sort of redraw their maps regardless. So he doesn't seem too concerned about sort of the domino effect that could be at play here.
Yeah, Representative Kiley, one of those Republicans in a blue state, he's in California, that could be redrawn out of their seat, or at least make their seat more challenging if Democrats retaliate with their own redistricting effort. I want to ask you about what the latest is from the White House and its involvement in what's happening in Texas. Trump threatened to get the FBI involved, and you have these Democratic lawmakers who have left the state to prevent a quorum, to prevent Texas from moving forward with its own redistricting plan. What does Trump mean by get the FBI involved?
Yeah, it's sort of vague, and Trump himself was sort of vague in his answer, saying, we may have to, quote unquote, may being the operative word, get the FBI involved. It's not super clear what that would look like. I suppose he could direct the FBI to, track down these lawmakers and try and, arrest them. It's unclear what grounds they could be arrested on just for sort of leaving the state. But I think, it's a sign that Republicans are really trying to turn up the pressure on these Democrats to get back to the state, to essentially establish a quorum so that Texas can move forward with this redistricting effort. But even if we don't see some sort of physical action from the government, I do think this is something we're seeing Republicans, not just in Texas but in Washington, take notice of, kind of ramp up the pressure, and really kind of push for as Texas moves forward with this redistricting plan.
All right, well, we'll leave it at that. Brett Samuels, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Drew.